everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Rankings Podcast. Jeff Erickson here. I'm with my special guest, Adam Ronis from Fantasy Life. Catch him on SiriusXM Fantasy. He and Kendall Valenzuela on air before us every morning, Monday through Friday. They kick butt on the channel there. They're doing great stuff over there. You also catch his work on at Fantasy Life, obviously, and read all of his stuff on Twitter as well. Adam, welcome. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, man. Glad to be here. It's been a while since we've spoken. Obviously, we're both so busy doing multiple sports, and we know we're getting right here, fantasy football playoff time. So hopefully many of you guys listening are in the fantasy football playoffs, and it's an exciting time right now.
It is. It really is. So to that end, we're, in most leagues, playoffs start next week. In some contests, they've already started. FFPC, I think, starts this week. Obviously, we're in the third week of the fantasy playoffs for the Scott Fish Bowl. Still alive there, by the way, knock on wood, but despite the JSN disaster game last week. But tell me, what's the big thing you tell people about getting ready for the fantasy playoffs? What's that one tip you want to tell people getting ready for the fantasy playoffs? Because it's obviously different than grinding through the regular season.
Yeah, I think you don't want to overthink things. We tend to get a little cute and analyze too much. Usually by now, you should have the team that got you there. You should know who your starters are. Now, of course, this has been a weird year because you hear all these players that people like, oh, you can't start anymore. And my answer to that is, oh, okay, who are you putting in their place? Because there's very few reliable players right now. I think I was looking, there's only like 7 receivers that are averaging 18 points in PPR formats. So maybe this might be a little bit different more than ever where matchups come into play. And players that we thought were league winners like 6 weeks ago, you're even questioning putting them in your lineup right now. It has changed so much from the beginning of the season. Roles just change every week. So you want to play the right matchups, but you also don't want to overthink things as well. And, hopefully you have the stud players that you need that got you there, put them in. But just try not to get too cute and overthink things where you're going to go, you know what? That was stupid. Why did I do that? I have regrets.
Agreed wholeheartedly. And I also agree about the whole league winner morphing into can I start him too. Emeka Egbuka, for instance, wide receivers as a whole just been a disaster. I feel like every week when I do the rankings, I get to 15 and I'm like, ew, I don't want to play him. DK Metcalf, that's another one. Don't want to play him. Roma Dunze, another guy. I mean, you can just, the list goes on about these guys that are just so unreliable right now. But Egbuka specifically, they're going to get Mike Evans back maybe in week 16, probably not until then. The practice window open, but they play, they're not going to play this week and they play on Thursday next week. So it's hard to, imagine him playing a whole lot before that, but still that's going to upset the apple cart even more.
Yeah. Egbuka was a player that I was drafting aggressively. 5th round. I had him pretty high in my rankings. And of course I looked really good after the first 5 weeks. Since then, it's been a struggle. He's really had one big game in double digits in PPR since then. The targets have still been there, which is why when you do your rankings, you have to have him in that 15 to 20 area. How low can you put him when he's getting 8 to 10 targets every single week? I think you have to hope, though, when Evans does return, it actually could help Egbuka because it will open things up a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's a rookie that is getting all of the attention of the defense right now. And Baker Mayfield hasn't played well either. I think he's still bothered by injuries. We know he had that left shoulder injury. He was on the injury report weeks before that with like a knee issue. If you look, his numbers just haven't been the same. So he was able to overcome all of the injuries to his offense early in the year. He hasn't been lately. Their schedule is favorable going forward. But yeah, I have Egbuka in a lot of leagues. And, I keep rolling him out there. I'm playing in a lot of leagues, though, where there's 3 receivers and 2 flex spots. So in those leagues, you kind of have no choice. And if you're playing in a high-stakes league with 20 rounds, you really don't have many better options either. So you're kind of just rolling with Egbuka out there every week, and you're just hoping that he can have that one big game when you need it in these fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, we'll talk about him later, but it's rare to find a windfall like A.D. Mitchell, which, and you don't even know if you can use him every week either. It's just, we've seen one week where he's had actual yards and more than just air yards. So we'll see. But, but yeah, it's so deep. Those leagues are just ridiculous. And you had to get that before he broke out, by the way, too. And you had to spend big on him because everybody can see they get the internet too, unfortunately.
Yeah, right. It's even more competitive nowadays. There's so much information out there. And that's the key. When you're in those deep leagues, you're going to have to speculate a little bit early and, $1 to $5, $10, like way in advance before they have that big game. Because once they have that big game, they're either off the waiver wire and on someone's team, or you got to spend a lot of your budget.
Yeah. Hey, I mentioned this. We were talking off air beforehand here. You and I met, go way back, back to the days when we were on Blog Talk Radio. And I know you were doing a column for Newsday at one point in time. That's how you kind of got into this business in the first place. I always like hearing the origin stories of people that have been in the business a long time. How did you kind of gravitate towards fantasy?
Yeah, so I always loved fantasy sports, but I got my start in sports journalism working at a newspaper. I also did some high school radio out here in Jersey, running the board, hosting the pregame show, halftime show, postgame show. So I always wanted to do radio eventually, growing up in New York. And like all of us, all I did was talk sports. Anyone who knew me back then, oh yeah, he's a crazy Mets fan, Cowboys, he loves sports. That's all I was defined by. And so Newsday asked me to start doing a fantasy baseball column, fantasy football column. And from there, I think at that time, it was Paul Greco and Lenny Melnick who kind of started Blog Talk Sports Radio. So they reached out to me, said, hey, do you want to do your own show? I said, sure. So I did an hour by myself and then a half hour twice a week. And then from there, Scott Engel, who's with Roto Experts at the time, reached out to me and say, hey, you want to do some work for us? I'm like, sure. And that led to me and him doing the morning show when the SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Channel debuted in 2010. So, it's always a product of hard work, but you also need to catch a break. And when you get that break and that opportunity, you have to break down the door. So I was fortunate enough to be in that spot, to be on a national radio show. And I was bad at first. I'm not going to lie, because it took some time for my personality to come out. You're so worried about what you're saying and the stats. So it took a while. But once, like anything, if you went back and you listened to your podcast at the beginning, you're probably like, damn, they're horrible. Because I know that's what happened to me. I was doing color commentary for a baseball game, a high school baseball game, just to get some demo stuff. And I went back and listened to it. I said, this is atrocious. I sounded like I didn't want to be there.
It's really rough.
I had no light. So you always want to go back and listen to your stuff to get better. So I was just glad to get the opportunity. And, there was a lot of long days and hard work, and actually not getting paid. I didn't get any money for the first 2.5 years that I did the show on SiriusXM. And that was 5 days a week. That was 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. So I would have to wake up at catch a bus at 4:30 a.m., go from Queens to New York City, do the show, and then go back to Queens and then drive into Long Island to do my newspaper work, covering high school sports. So sometimes I would drive 60 miles, cover a game, go back to the office, write the story, get home at midnight, and then have to catch up on all the sports from the day just to go wake up 4 hours later. So we always talk about paying dues, and, I don't regret it at all, but it was a lot of work and a lot of sacrifices. But I always say this: when you enjoy something, you make the sacrifice for it. When someone tells you, yeah, I don't have time, they're lying. Because if you, all the women that I told that to in the past, hopefully they're not listening, but, I would make excuses like, yeah, I'm really busy. But the same thing, I didn't get a lot of sleep. There were nights I slept 2 hours, but once that microphone went on, that energy level was high because I loved doing it. It was so much fun. After the show, I crashed on the subway home. I would sleep, but a lot of people, and I'm sure you're the same. Obviously, you sacrificed a lot. You probably made nothing. You put it in a lot of hours when you first started.
Yep.
You have to start somewhere, and you have to put in the work to get discovered. But I don't really look at it as work because I enjoyed what I was doing.
I always use the phrase sweat equity. It's like, we don't have the financial backing, but we do have, I have my energy. I have my time. I have my passion. And, it's three of us that started Roto News, which became RotoWire. And, it started off very humble, and, you grow and you catch some breaks. And yeah, we caught lots of, like you mentioned, Scott Engel, great guy in our industry, lifts a lot of people up. I've run into John Hunt. Noticing our work and promoting that in Baseball Weekly just did wonders for us. There's all these people that lifted us along the way, and eventually we get there. But and it's even harder now for people to break in, because now at least we had fresh powder to work with there. Now everything is established. It's harder to distinguish yourself from everybody else.
There's no question about it. I mean, I definitely came in at the right time and got the opportunity. Who knows what it would have been like today? There's so much competition out there. Everyone wants to do this, and everyone thinks they're great, and everyone wants to get paid immediately. And it's not that way anymore. And there's so many different ways too to get your voice out there through social media. Everyone has a podcast. So yeah, it is different. It's a challenging time to really make yourself known and become a figure out there because there's more competition now.
Exactly right. Hey, we are seeing a bunch of questions come through. We'll hit a few of these on the way out, but we got a couple of topics. Hopefully we can answer some of your questions as we talk about the rankings. We're going to do that right now. I'm Jeff Erickson here with Adam Ronis. Again, you can catch him at Fantasy Live, catch him on SiriusXM Fantasy, on the Fantasy Live show. You can catch him on Twitter at Adam Ronis, and that'll lead you down the pathway to everything Adam does. Make sure to check out their work. They do great stuff at Fantasy Life, and Adam does awesome work. Adam, let's talk quarterbacks. I think there's some interesting decisions this week. Let's start off with, what did you think about Joe Burrow in his debut on Thanksgiving night? What's your level of confidence against him in a reasonably tough matchup on the road in Orchard Park against the Bills?
I'm confident in him. I think I liked what I saw. It was a little rust early on, but considering no T. Higgins, I thought he played well, and I was able to pick him up in a few leagues over the last couple of weeks. I did start him in one. I have one with him and Dak Prescott. I went with Dak Prescott. Probably will continue to do so this week as well, but I do feel good about Burrow, considering the long layoff and how he performed. Now, Buffalo is a tougher matchup. We know what you need to do against Buffalo. You need to run the football. So maybe they do rely on Chase Brown and Samaje Perine a little bit more, but it's Joe Burrow. You're going to put the ball in his hands. You still have an opportunity to win that division. They're 2 games out of first, and obviously Ravens and Steelers are playing. So outside of a tie, one of them are losing. So if they win, they're still 2 games out. So I feel good about Burrow. I think there might be, usually you would put him top 3, top 4. I think maybe a little bit lower than that. There's a few quarterbacks I could see that you would have him over because there could be teams that have Burrow and another top quarterback because you picked them up off the waiver wire over the last year. Like I said, I have Dak and Burrow because someone last week was like, oh, there's no way you have Burrow and someone else. I'm like, yeah, you can, because Burrow was on the waiver wire in a lot of leagues. If you didn't have an IR spot, you couldn't hold on to him. I drafted Burrow in a super flex league and had to drop him, and I couldn't get him back. How brutal is that, Jeff?
It's the worst feeling in the world, especially you empty the wallet for Jake freaking Browning to replace it there too. And that's the part that just is, and that blew up after 3 games and you didn't even get the benefit of that. Remember, everybody, Burrow wasn't supposed to come back for another couple of weeks still. It was mid to late December they were talking about that. And if things go right, he's just such a competitor that he had to come back. Even though the Bengals season was lost, it's still not dead yet, but it's almost dead. But hey, they pull the miracle this week, then hey, that division's still there for the taking. I have Burrow at 6. I have him ahead of Lamar, believe it or not, this week.
Yeah, I would. I don't really think that's a debate.
Yeah. I think it's just, if you can't get it done against the Bengals' historically bad defense, who can you get it done against? I still have Lamar in my top 10, but like last week I started Brissett over Burrow and that worked out okay, but I flip-flopped it this week.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Brissett, obviously so much volume. It's a tougher matchup this week against the Rams. We expect them to bounce back. I know they gave up 3 touchdowns to Bryce Young. He only attempted 20 passes, and I think it was just the weather. And Stafford was a little off. We're not used to seeing him turn over the ball, but Brissett is just – they're not going to have success on the ground, so he's probably going to put the ball in the air 40, 45 times, but it is a more difficult matchup. And again, Burrow's a top quarterback that even in tough matchups, you got to trust him.
Exactly. All right, let's move on. Let's talk a little Jordan Love. We saw the shackles unleashed. He was able, they let him go wild against Detroit on Thanksgiving. It's a much more compelling offense to watch when they do that. They go for it on 4th down. They're throwing downfield. Do we see that against the Bears, or do they revert back to their slow pace and conservative ways?
Yeah, I'm a little worried they might, because even with last week, Love still only had 30 pass attempts, but like you said, they took more shots downfield. They were a little bit more aggressive. And that's the only thing that's really holding Love back, because we know they want to run the football, and they've had a couple of games recently where they just didn't need to. They had low-scoring games against Carolina, Philadelphia, and they just haven't passed much. But you see Love is a good passer. It's just, will they give him the opportunity? We just don't see many games where he gets more than 30 pass attempts. So if the Bears can keep this game close and maybe a back-and-forth affair, then, yeah, I think you could see Love. I think he's like a borderline QB1 this week. The Bears have given up fantasy points to the quarterback position.
Yeah, they have. I've got Love at 13 this week. It's not the, I think had like their corners still been banged up, if Jalen Johnson in particular had been out, I think that changes things a little bit. I'd push them up a couple of notches. weather is going to be an issue in that game too. They got like 10 inches of snow last week. It won't be maybe snowing during that game, but it's cold there. That's kind of the point. Something to watch for there a little bit too. Say if you had Drake Maye, congratulations. You know, I only have one league with Drake Maye. It's kind of killing me. I wanted to get him in more leagues, just didn't. But if you do have Drake Maye this week, who are you streaming in his place?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I'm sure this happens to you in every sport where you just go out there and you're like, I love this guy. He's going to break out. And then you look and you're like, I don't have him anywhere. I definitely have him in best ball. But my last draft, I said, I am getting Drake Maye no matter what. I have to get him because I don't have him on any teams and I loved him. So I did get him. My other quarterback on that team right now, though, is Daniel Jones. So I looked at the waiver wire and it's the FFWC. So this is the last week that you can make pickups. I think I'm going to roll with him right now. The other guys out there are like Tyrod Taylor, who I think is interesting, and CJ Stroud. So you have Jones above those guys right now, right?
Yes, I do. I have Jones at 16. I have Stroud at 18. Most leagues, Stroud's even taken, so Taylor has been my pickup. I'm glad you mentioned him because Dolphins corners are pretty bad. You never know about the weather, but at least you can squint and see like a floor. All the others, the floor is the ocean. It's a Marianas Trench, Minnesota quarterback or something like that. Mariota, as it's now pronounced. But we
don't know if he's going to start. That's the other.
Exactly.
He wouldn't be that bad of an option. He does run a little bit, got Terry McLaurin back. So, all those guys are kind of close. So it looks like for me, I know Jones is rostered in many leagues and people are kind of scared, obviously, with this fibula injury. I mean, he did throw 2 touchdown passes last week, but there's definitely concern about him going forward. So, of the other quarterbacks, I probably would look at Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, I think that's the way I'm going to. Jones, one rush attempt last week. That's the thing that kills me. It's like, you knew that was what was paying the bills here. We got a quarterback related question. We'll go ahead and answer that now. Congrats to Fantasy Meatball. He made it to the championship in the KFFSC. Needs to start one first among quarterbacks: Brissett, Mayfield, or CJ Stroud. I think we can eliminate Stroud in this conversation. So Brissett or Mayfield, who do you got?
I think this week is finally the week for Baker Mayfield in this matchup here against the Saints. So I lean him. I think it's close. Jacoby's like right there with him. If he wants to go Jacoby, I can't talk you out of that with as well as he's played. It's just a tougher matchup here against the Rams defense. So I would go with Baker Mayfield this week.
Yeah, I would too. I've got them both in my. I've got Mayfield at 5 this week, and I got Brissett at 10. Still not bad.
So you're feeling the Mayfield bounce back week too.
Yeah, I am. Saints sneakily are still giving up a decent amount of passing yards, and so are the Bucks for that matter. So I think Chuck will actually be, cromulent enough that it keeps it a game. It's not a blowout. I think that's the whole point. You need to make sure that they can push back at least a little bit. Otherwise, it just goes into a shell of a game. Like Minnesota, it won't be Minnesota-Seattle, for instance. I think it'll be at least some pushback there. The second part to his question, Hubbard versus Dowdle in the following week. Which Carolina back do you prefer?
Boy, this is a tough one because it's been Dowdle every week until last week, and Hubbard looked really good. And Hubbard did say that he came back a little bit too early from that calf injury, and it certainly appeared like it because he wasn't the same. We know how good he was last year. And I guess you can't blame him. He watches Dowdle go out there and put up 200-plus yards and like, wait a second, this guy's going to steal my job. I got to get back out there. And obviously it was not good. They ran the ball 40 times. They both had, I think Hubbard had 21 touches. Dowdle had 20, so it was real close. I probably still give Dowdle the edge, but it's not by much. I think at least you have 2 weeks to make this decision. And I don't know if we're going to get much information from them. They both are probably going to get a lot of volume, though. They're going to just want to run the football. They don't want to expose Bryce Young too much.
Yeah, I agree. And I got to look ahead to actually see who they play in week 15.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too.
Yeah.
We're so focused on week 14,
Exactly. I know, for instance, I know the Bucks play Atlanta in week 15, but they still have 2 games against Carolina after that, which is kind of crazy.
So the Panthers are playing the Saints.
Ooh, that didn't go so well for Dowdle last time. Remember, that was the home game where Dowdle scores on the first drive, but then the Saints commit to just shutting down Dowdle and making Bryce Young beat him, and he couldn't. They scored 7 points in that game. That was a ridiculous game.
That's Carolina, the epitome of them this year. You just don't know which team you're going to get. They show up and they beat the Rams, they've beaten Dallas, and then other games their offense is non-existent.
Exactly right. So very frustrating team. That it just fits the NFC South. Throw them all in the same bucket there. All right. We're going to move on to the running back position. But before we do that, real quick, a note from our friends over at Dabble. Dabble isn't just another DFS app. It's the ultimate social platform where you can connect with other fantasy sports lovers. Dabble lets you win big. You can win up to 5,000 times your money this football season. Starting with Dabble is easy. New users get $25 free when signing up. No deposit necessary. Check out the link in the episode description below to download Dabble now. Big thanks to Dabble for joining us on the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Jeff. He's Adam Ronis. Thanks for tuning in. Adam, let's talk a little running backs. Couple of guys I want to start off with. We were talking about the Bucks a little bit there. You saw Bucky Irving make his return last week. Surprisingly, he took over the majority of the carries, relegated Sean Tucker to third string. We didn't really see much of Sean Tucker. What did you see out of Bucky Irving? What's your degree of confidence starting him going forward?
Very confident. I thought it was an excellent sign because we did hear it could be a hot hand situation, and Tucker was playing well. Rashad White, we know what he can do in the passing game. So I think there might have been some trepidation for people with Bucky Irving when you hear that. Mm-hmm. And then Rashad White got the first carry of the game, and you're like, oh, no, here we go. And then it was, I know Bucky only averaged 3.6 yards per carry, but the fact that they gave him 19 touches in his first game back, he did score a touchdown. He had another called back due to a holding penalty. I thought it was a really good sign. I think he played about 54% of the snaps, but I don't really worry about that. My back is going to get the ball almost every time he's on the field. I love that. So it was a real good first sign, and it tells us that going forward, they really believe that he's the guy that they're going to lean on. So I'm really confident. They obviously have a lot to play for as they're fighting to hold off Carolina and win that division. And they have a good schedule going forward. I think you'll see this offense improve. And you mentioned at the top, we potentially could see Mike Evans this week or next week. So Chris Godwin, too, I thought looked pretty good last week. I was worried about him. Yeah, I was worried about him being a contributor the rest of the way. I didn't think he looked good when he first came back. So, yeah, it's trending upward, and I definitely feel confident about Bucky Irving going forward.
Yeah, agreed. I can start them. I'm starting Godwin. I've got him at 25 this week among receivers, higher than Ibuka. Finally, I flip-flopped them in my order. K. Dotton's disappeared a little bit. He's only scored one touchdown all year anyhow. The benefit of the bargain at the tight end is at least you're supposed to get those red zone receipts, and he just doesn't do that. So I can't use him. He's like pretty low on my tight end list there. All the Bucks talk you can handle here, folks. That's all us there. I'm wearing orange for a reason today, apparently, but there you go. Let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about another orange team, the Cleveland Browns. Quinshon Judkins. I think he's looked really good in a bad situation all year long. Some instances there where, the yards per carry aren't great. You just got to realize he's with a really bad offensive line and a horrific quarterback situation. This week against the Titans, I like his matchup, and I think I like his volume.
You have to. I mean, it is rare that we see a situation where the Cleveland Browns are favored. So I see it move down. I think it was 4.5 earlier today. It's now 3.5. The total's 33.5. And I don't think that's weather related either. I think it's these two teams are atrocious. Yeah. But yeah, with Judkins, look, we always want players in fantasy who get volume. We're getting that from him. The issue that has kind of held him back, like you said, is this offense. They've trailed quite a bit. Now, their defense has kept them in some games because it's that good. So you're hoping you get a game like 2 weeks ago against Vegas. Now, that was a game where he only had 2.9 yards per carry and 47 rush yards, but he got 2 touchdowns. This week, they fell behind against San Francisco. He still had 26 touches, and we did see him get 3 receptions. So I wonder if that's something that maybe we see with Sanders a little bit more going forward, because his lack of involvement in the passing game has led to low floors, because if he doesn't score a touchdown, it's kind of a single-digit week. But this is a good setup here. Even if they're trailing, they're not going to be down 17-0 in this game to Tennessee. There's no way Tennessee's offense can do that against this Browns defense unless they get a kickoff return, a pick six, and then all of a sudden it's 14-0. That's kind of the only way. So the game script should be favorable for Judkins. And we know once they get near that goal line, it's going to him. So, yeah, this is definitely a good setup for him. And we would look at his numbers a lot differently if he was in a better offense. He still has 7 rushing touchdowns. And I'm amazed that he came in week 2 and looked as good as he did so quickly without training camp. I was amazed. It was very even the first 4 games of the season were great for him. And then he kind of really fell off. He hasn't averaged more than 4 yards per carry in a game since his 4th game of the season back in week 5.
Week 2 was a pretty good tell. He played like 19 snaps, yet had like 11 touches. I mean, it was like, yes, he's going to get the ball. He's going to get it a lot. It's like, okay, he's going to do that. So I've got him in my top 20 this week here. Again, not a high scoring game, but if there's a score to be had, it'll probably be him or Harold Fannin. And that's pretty much the list for the Browns. So that's nice. It's a narrow, but paltry tree. So we'll take what we can get there. Another running back I wanted to discuss is Kyren Williams. He's got the bad ankle. He's losing time to Blake Corum in the first half. He was limited in practice today with that ankle. I'm a little concerned about this. I've got him lower than I usually do. I've got him at 21 this week. I could see a scenario where the Rams get out ahead. It'll be kind of like the Bucs game on Sunday night a couple of weeks ago, and we just don't see a lot of Kyren Williams in the second half.
I still think it's mainly his backfield. They talked about they were going to mix in Corum more, and he's still playing the majority of the snaps. He played 67% last week, 33% for Corum. So you might see Corum. They kind of alternated series too, so you might see Corum get a series where he's in there for the goal line, but I still feel fine about Kyren Williams. I think the bigger issue for Kyren Williams is every time they're inside the 5, it is a pass to Davante Adams. I don't know why they don't triple team him, because you know where the ball is going. It's like every time they're at the 1, they're inside the 5, inside the 10, it's automatic to Davante Adams. So that's the one issue. But this offense is putting up so many points. As bad as Stafford played last week, he still threw for 2 touchdowns and almost 250 yards. So I expect them to put up points. Look, when you were drafting Kyren Williams before the year and what we saw the last 2 years, one of the biggest things was he was playing 80 to 90% of the snaps. It was everything to him. Even last year, there was talk that he would lose some of that, and he didn't. So that was my concern about him in draft season. Then they signed him to the contract, though, and you're like, oh, okay, they really like him. But you knew that they could not keep that up, especially since he's not the biggest back. So maybe it's worse than I'm letting on because I don't have him. But I think he's been fine. It's just that we're in a situation now where a lot of running backs are splitting or having another running back take away from him. There's just very few guys that are getting the entire backfield. Kyren Williams is 9th in points per game at the running back position this year. So I think the floor is very high for him on a given week. Like, he might not have the ceiling that we've seen in the years past where he's not going to have those 3 touchdown games like we saw the last 2 years, but I think he's good for, 70 yards, a touchdown, catch a few passes. So I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, I hear you. I have a NFFC team where I think I had the 5th pick. So I went Lamb in the 1st round. I got Cook in the 3rd, and it was, it's 3rd round reversal. So that was pretty nice. But I took Kyren over JSN, and that one's kind of hurting me right now. Although JSN was terrible, obviously, last week, but still, it's not like Kyren's killing me, but it could have been so much better.
Yeah, we always go back and look at those drafts, and we all wonder how the hell did we pass on JSN, right? Yeah, I said this year, I thought the 2-3 turn when you were picking 1 was not great this year. I didn't love anyone there, and obviously the answer was JSN. Yeah,
that's right. And then if you did 3rd round reversal, it's even worse. That's where you really feel that pain a little bit there. Speaking of pain, the Seattle running backs, every week I struggle with what I'm going to do with them, where I'm going to put them, in which order for that matter. Even like this week, I got Walker at 15. I've got Charbonnet at 25. You could put them in reverse order, and I wouldn't even argue with you too much on that. But what are you doing with the Seattle backs?
I think you have to put Walker first. We've started to see a little bit of a shift in the direction towards him. But once again, the red zone carry going to Charbonnet, and he scores that touchdown. Yeah, I did like Kenneth Walker a lot going into the year. I guess I got saved because I don't have him in any redraft leagues, because I thought under Kubiak this was a great fit, and he would get a lot of volume. We did hear right before the start of the season, we're going to see Charbonnet a little bit more. Now, I don't know if this is because they're worried about Walker's health and they want to preserve him for the postseason. If that is the case, clearly it's working because he stayed healthy, but it has just absolutely destroyed his fantasy value. He has been more involved in the passing game lately. He's got 9 receptions over the last 3 games, so that's kind of raised his floor a little bit. We know he's capable of breaking these long runs, but we haven't seen it. His longest run this year is 31 yards. I found that surprising. The way he has the ability to break away, you would think he would get a 40, a 50-yard run at some point. So that's kind of really hurt him. Yeah, but I think you still have to have him higher because he's getting more volume. But it just is brutal when you're watching Walker take the drive down the field, and then at the 10, here comes Charbonnet, and he scores a touchdown.
Yeah, after running into the pile 2 times, and then finally on the third try, he goes in too. It's just all the more frustrating. Walker scored in that Rams game. I'm like, yeah, he's better. Keep doing that sort of thing. And I'm not even invested. I have 0 Walker or Charbonnet this year. I just wanted to stay away from the Seattle run game just because their line was so bad last year. Yeah. So I guess that kind of got a little
I don't, like I said, I don't have Walker either, but it frustrates me because we all see it that he's the better back. And again, if you want to use Charbonnet, mix him in to keep Walker healthy, I have no problem with that. But when Walker breaks off a run to get them inside the 10 and you immediately take him out for Charbonnet, it's like, come on, man, what are we doing?
Exactly. There's certain backfields that are frustrating that way. One thing that's not frustrating is the folks at Trophy Smack. They're really great. Did the Scott Fishbowl Live there a couple of years in a row there down in the city of Orange, and they're just great folks. They are sponsoring this podcast. You dominated your fantasy football league all season long. Now it's time to show it off. Trophy Smack turns your league domination into hardware built to flex. From championship belts, trophies, rings, and chains, they've got everything a true champion needs to make victories unforgettable. And don't forget about shaming that league loser. They've got items like high visibility loser vests, embarrassing singlets, and humiliating license plate frames. Trophy Smack fuels the glory and the punishment every league needs to keep the season unforgettable. Trash talk fades, but hardware lasts forever. You earned this moment. Claim it. Visit TrophySmack.com to lock in your hardware and take 10% off with code ROTOSMACK10. That's TrophySmack.com, code ROTOSMACK10. You can thank us later. Again, so if you guys do a trophy at all, check out Trophy Smack. They have great stuff over there. They always sponsor our FSGA conferences as well. I'm here with Adam Ronis from Fantasy Life. You can follow him on Twitter at Adam Ronis. You can listen to him on SiriusXM Fantasy. He's on mornings. For me, it's 7 to 9 my time. It's a little bit more palatable for him, 10 to noon. You're no longer getting up at dark 30 to do radio anymore.
Definitely not, except Sunday morning. Sundays it's 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern, and that's also simulcast on NFL radio. So only a few weeks of that left. But yeah, like I said, though, so that's the crazy part, Jeff. I have never been a morning person in my life. And when they first said you're doing morning radio, they said it's going to be 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. I said 8 a.m. I'm not doing 7. They came back and they said it's 7. Are you in or out? I was like, all right, I'm not turning this down. I was like, I'm in. Right. And then there were times I did 6 a.m. too. So there were literally, I would get 2 hours sleep sometimes. Sometimes I wouldn't sleep at all. It'd be 3 a.m. And I'm like, why am I going to go sleep now? I'll just take the bus into the New York City, grab something to eat, and then just crash when I go home. So it's just another example. When you love what you do and you're passionate about something, you'll sacrifice sleep or whatever it is. Because again, it's all about the enjoyment. I'm sure softball. I still love playing softball. And
same here.
Right? Love it, Jeff, man. I just finished playing weeknight softball. I can't play Sunday in the fall because obviously we have to work. So I started doing weeknights in the fall and then Sundays come April in the summer. So
I've been on the same team since 2002.
Wow.
We play on Thursday nights, Cheviot Hills in LA out here. Brendan Ryan is on my team. His older brother runs the team. His older brother, Paul Ryan, and our pitcher, Buzz, Brian McCarthy, were next door neighbors as kids. So they've been playing ball together for 45 years probably. And
that's just phenomenal, man. Yeah, I've said to myself, I want to play till I'm 60, 65. There's some guys that I see playing in their 60s and 70s, and I envy that. And I want to do it. Obviously, it depends on the body, how long it allows you to. So trying to stay in as great shape as possible. And you get to play year round, right? Because you're out there in Cali.
Yep. We play year round.
You're lucky. I can't play now for the next 4 months.
Yeah, exactly. We pay the weather bill out here. That's what we do. But yeah, we're the mid to upper 50s guys. And yeah, we're starting to feel limitations of that every once in a while there. Let's just say that we're in a level 1 higher than we should be right now. And we're feeling that, but that's okay. It manifests itself in outfield defense. We just don't have
so that's interesting you said. So you still play the outfield?
I'm a first baseman playing the outfield because we have a better first baseman, unfortunately.
Okay,
so.
yeah, because I play the outfield too, and I'm still very quick, and I'm just like, when is that going to go away? You know it's going to happen.
I'm not quick. I've never been quick. That's the problem.
That's fine, but I've seen it. So there's outfielders, they just read the ball well off the bat and get a good step. You don't need to be the fastest. If you read the ball well off the bat and at years of experience, I'm sure that's what you're able to do. You get the routine stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And just do the best I can there. But yeah, it's a blast. All right, let's talk a little wide receivers. Talk about a problem position. We've got someone emerging this week. Jameson Williams had a big day on Thanksgiving after Amon-Ra got hurt. You got to figure, even if St. Brown plays this game on Thursday night, it's not going to be the same sort of distribution of targets. How high do you have Jameson Williams this week?
Yeah, I think you have to have him really high this week. I'm hoping, as a Cowboys fan, Amon-Ra St. Brown just sits, takes it easy. They are, as of right now, he is listed as questionable. It kind of scares me. I have a feeling he actually might go out there and play. He's one of those guys that I wouldn't doubt it. Right. But let's assume he's out at this point. Obviously, it is a monumental game for both teams. I mean, the loser's in big trouble. I mean, Dallas still has the path to win the division if somehow Philadelphia continues to play bad football. But either way, it's a big loss for either. But I think if St. Brown is out, I think you have to have J-Mo in the top 10. I mean, we saw what he did last week, and he's been a frustrating player this year. He can give you a 0 any week, but when you take Amon-Ra St. Brown out of the picture, I mean, that is a huge target share. I mean, he's essentially penciled in 10 to 12 targets every game. You take that away, and again, we saw what he did last week. And Dallas, their defense has improved, but they still cannot cover wide receivers. We saw the big game that Rice had last week, and Goff said it, that Williams is just a cheat code on slants. And they just need to get him the ball more. And, you probably
he needs to catch it.
That too. Yeah, that's certainly a factor. But we know that the ceiling is massive for him. And
agreed.
Last week was the first game of the year that he got double-digit targets with 10. And if St. Brown is out, you got to think he's getting 10 again. So he's got to be in the top 10 if St. Brown is out.
I agree. I've got him at 8 under that assumption. And if St. Brown plays, then we'll talk. But I'm not putting him as low as I would have otherwise. It would be still top 20. I would still, I'm starting him over Roma Dunze or Zay Flowers this week, even if St. Brown plays, because those guys are so unreliable too. So why not just go with the guy with the upside? It's going to get more targets probably anyhow, indoors. All these things are kind of in that favor there. How about his teammate, Isaac Tesla? I actually picked him up in a league. I'm in a 16-teamer, so it's kind of insane there. I'm going to actually use Tesla, I think, if St. Brown doesn't play. What do you think about him?
Yeah, I think he's like a wide receiver 3. Now, he came into the game last week and played a lot. He played 92% of the snaps. Now, obviously, he wasn't incorporated into the game plan very much because the injury happened so early. So now they have a week to get him ready. And, he's flashed. I mean, I remember him rising up draft boards, especially in the high stakes leagues, and I didn't understand it. I'm like, right, where are these targets coming from? I know we had the preseason and the highlight touchdowns, one-handed grabs and all that, but I was like, this makes no sense because we already knew that Detroit was going to give us a few players who disappointed when you have Gibbs, Montgomery, St. Brown, Laporta, and all those guys going so early. But now, especially if St. Brown's out, you have no Laporta. They really don't have a tight end now. He still only had 2 targets last week, 2 for 35 and a touchdown. But you got to figure this week in this matchup against Dallas, if he's going to be on the field 90% of the time, hopefully there's 5 targets, 6 targets, and somehow he can find the end zone. So I do think he's like a wide receiver 3. I was able to pick him up in a league last week, and he's still out there. And I know this is the last week of waivers in these high-stakes leagues. He's pretty much available, I think, in almost all of them.
Yep. Agreed. And I'll probably throw some bids in on him. I prefer Mitchell and Vele as possible pickups over Tesla, but other than that, I think that's like my streamer of the week that I'm looking to try to go ahead and use in leagues where I think they're plausibly available. In these contests, it's hard to find even that guy available.
Oh yeah, if you go look for running backs in that, you're finding 0.
No,
you can't find anything. And I agree. The other receivers too are more because remember Tesla could only be a 1-week plug-in, right? Because it doesn't sound like St. Brown is going to miss much time,
right? And this is also, all things considered, pace of this game is expected to be high. They'll probably, Dallas is going to get their points. Detroit may try to, it's not like Detroit's going to be able to do the running things they like to do because their offensive line's banged up. Dallas has actually been good against the run since getting Quinshon Williams. I mean, I think it's, all things kind of point to them trying to throw a ton to catch up. That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, we want this game to be explosive, and all signs point to it as well. I mean, the Cowboys offense right now is just tough to stop. I mean, you can make a case that they're the best offense in the NFL right now with the way
Dak
they're playing.
Is so good right now.
Yeah, and they're
so good.
They're fun to watch. Look, I was saying this. I was like, who are the most? I was saying on the show, who are the top 5 most fun teams offensively to watch in the NFL right now? And I don't even know if you could come up with 5.
Dallas is definitely one of them. Detroit is usually one of them, but they're kind of compromised
Buffalo's
right
not.
now.
Baltimore's not. Like the teams that we used to, they're just not fun right now.
Bengals are back to being fun again.
I would say that, yeah, and especially if they can get T. Higgins back this week.
And whoever's playing the Bengals.
That's
so
true.
You've got that going as well. I'll say this. It's not necessarily the most fun fantasy team because they spread around so much, but I think the Pats are fun to watch. A lot of
Drake Maye is so fun. I mean, that kid has made such a big leap. And what's impressive about it is it's not like he has a lot of weapons on offense. I mean, Diggs has returned and done well, but we've seen his routes run are down, his snap counts are down. They've done a good job to get here with this record, and they have the ability to ease him back from that injury. Keyshawn Boutte has been good, Hunter Henry's been good, but it's not like he has like elite receivers. Diggs is a good veteran receiver, runs good routes, that's helping him, but it's not like he has a ton of weapons. He's kind of elevating players around him.
Yeah. I throw Rams into that pile too.
Yes, the Rams definitely.
Yeah. Then there's a couple others here and there, but like the Chiefs aren't as fun as they used to be. The Eagles aren't. Nobody's definition of fun right now. So unless you're an Eagles hater and you like watching their own fans boo them, and maybe there's that, but the Colts aren't as fun as they were earlier this year. The Colts were so much fun, but ever since Jones got hurt, it's just different. So that's
their schedule has gotten a lot tougher too.
Yeah, go figure. That's part of it too.
With Jonathan Taylor too, he hasn't been scoring as much. And now, I mean, look, there's a chance the Colts don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, there is. There really is. Speaking of not fun, how low are you setting Justin Jefferson this week?
Okay, so this because you do rankings. I get it. No one wants to play Justin Jefferson, but really, like, how low can you push him down the board? Because all the receivers around him have major question marks as well.
That's right.
You have to hope that this is probably the best matchup they've had in a while. The Commanders have allowed the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers. J.J. McCarthy's going to play this week. A lot of people last week like, it can't get worse with Max Brosmer, right? It got way worse. Now, to be
That's
fair,
the exact comment I made in my rankings this week. That's so funny.
To be fair, like it was Seattle. Like we knew it was not going to work out. They have to get Jefferson the ball. You could see how frustrated he is. He did not speak with the media after the game. He had that game a couple weeks ago where his body language looked bad and he was kind of quitting. They're 4-8. The season's over, but you've got to get Jefferson going. So I think they have to make every effort to throw him the football this week. So he's probably like in the 20s. My guess is you have him around 20. Would that be correct?
28.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you have him a lot lower. Okay.
A couple guys I have ahead of him: Pierce, Godwin, Jaden Higgins. I guess it's Godwin's law. If you have Godwin over you, it's the argument's over. But no, it's a little internet joke. But Jefferson, I mean, it's just because I don't know if it's going to be McCarthy or Brosmer. If it's Brosmer, it's congratulations, universe. You maybe missed JJ McCarthy somehow. It's hard to do, but it's close. I mean, really, all these guys I can have question marks about though. And you could see a universe where Jefferson's still top 10 because they just, feed him 12 targets, but I don't know. It's so tough.
To be fair, I cannot argue with any of that. Now, McCarthy was a full participant in practice today, so all indications are he's going to play. But again, I don't know if that's a good thing. It's really the matchup and the talent that you're banking on. But yeah, I mean, I could see you meant Pierce. Sure. I mean, Pierce has been really good. He had one bad game recently. He's been phenomenal. I mean, he's essentially their one right now. So you can make a case for a lot of others. I don't have Justin Jefferson this year, so I can't give a good example. That's always the litmus test. You can tell people don't do this, don't do that. But like, okay, let's see the real scenario, like when you're facing it. Again, I could see, would you play AD Mitchell over him?
No, but it's close. I've got Mitchell at 32.
Okay.
And in fact, hey, you asked my question for me. AD Mitchell was on my list of guys to talk about. Are you starting him or not? It's right there with Zay Flowers and Brian Thomas. So first of all, AD Mitchell versus Zay Flowers. Who do you got?
I would go, Flowers is at a pretty high floor, but he hasn't scored since week 1. I didn't like Flowers this year in fantasy because he doesn't score touchdowns. Yep. And obviously the Ravens offense has morphed into something different than we expected. I think I would go AD Mitchell.
I can see it. I have Flowers ahead right now, but I do an update on my rankings on Thursday. And after like 18, I could take these names in a bag, shuffle them up, and just line them up after that there. And I think it'd get just as much accuracy, confidence there. Like Flowers, he could have had a decent game against the Bengals if that off OPI doesn't get called. Ends up 2 for 6 with a fumble instead. And, it's just, what are you going to do with that? Not much. And yeah, I'm probably going to move. I'm going to probably move Flowers down. That's one guy I am going to move down. Brian Thomas Jr. He's at best the number 2 on his own team now. I have Jacoby Myers comfortably over Brian Thomas Jr. Are you starting Brian Thomas in any leagues, or did you dodge that bullet?
No, I did draft them in 2 redraft leagues. I was high on them. So I think one of them is one of the few teams I have that is definitely eliminated from the playoffs already. I wonder why.
Yeah, weird.
Another one, I'm still alive and I'm playing them. It's a deep league with like 3 flex spots, so I kind of have no choice. But yeah, this has been a horrific season if you have Brian Thomas, and
especially considering who you passed to get him.
Oh yeah. There's no question. I mean, you could have Malik Neighbors and he went down early, but either way, it's just, I didn't expect it. I know people were like, well, he did everything with Mac Jones and it's different with Trevor Lawrence. I don't think that was it, but you could see the chemistry wasn't there. He had a lot of injuries. Mm-hmm. I guess he was worried about the hospital balls from Trevor Lawrence because you could see him kind of afraid to make catches over the middle. And then the injury that kept him out. And now Jacoby Myers has come in and overtaken him, and you got Brenton Strange. So, yeah, I think Brian Thomas is not someone that's a must start because of those guys that are kind of ahead of him in the pecking order. So I think he's more like a very low-end wide receiver 3 at this point.
Yep. Meanwhile, you could have taken Puka maybe at that spot. You could have taken Jonathan Taylor at that spot. You can envision a completely different team.
There's a lot of guys, Jeff, that you could have taken and it would have turned out better. And it's unfortunate, though. That's how it goes sometimes. But look, one player, even in the first round, should not cripple your season. You should still be able to overcome it unless you had the rest of the draft was also bad.
Yeah. Or unless it was a dynasty and then you're stuck with it too. And you're just hoping that, okay, bring back Mac Jones and maybe we'll be okay. But no, just kidding. I only kind of kidding. I have my doubts about Lawrence in the long term.
I mean, look, I do too. I mean, I said something the other day. I'm like, Trevor Lawrence doesn't improve. And they're like, he keeps on winning. I'm like, they're not winning because of him.
Right. Exactly right. Be an interesting game this week there for the Colts and Jags. Really looking forward to that one. Good slate there. A lot of
the slate is very good this week, and we need it after Sunday slate last week.
Oh, so bad, so bad. Especially the afternoon slate. Those three games were just hideous games. All right, let's talk tight ends. Before we do that, though, quick note. All right, we have a new sponsor, Prosper Trading. Every weekend, millions bet on sports, hoping to beat the odds. But here's the truth: the house always wins. With trading, you're not betting, you're building. At Prosper Trading Academy, we give you the tools, the education, and the live guidance to actually create an edge. You can control your risk, compound your wins, and trade alongside real pros every single day. Stop gambling on games you can't control. Start trading the markets that you can. Visit prospertrading.com/roto today. That's prospertrading.com/ROTO today and take your shot at real financial growth. Thanks to Prosper Trading. We're also on the BlueWire network. Here are their ads. All right. We're going to talk tight ends with Adam Ronis, and we'll hit some questions on the way out. Adam, let's talk a little bit about Dalton Schultz, who sneakily has been a top 10 fantasy tight end this year. He's getting a lot of those move the chain targets. Doesn't get a ton of touchdowns, but does get some red zone looks here and there. I think he's part of that, the pack, but plus in terms of like tight ends, how tight ends go.
Yeah, he's been pretty reliable. He's really had one bad game recently. The Texans obviously are playing very well. Does have a tough matchup here, though, against the Chiefs. They've been really good against tight ends. So that would be my only concern. They've allowed the 6th fewest points to the tight end position. We've seen them face Tyler Warren and Jake Ferguson recently, and they were held in check. So that would be the only issue, is that the matchup is tough for Schultz this week.
Yep, indeed. I agree with you on that one there. If Dalton Kincaid has to sit again, are you picking up / using Dawson Knox against the Bengals' historically bad tight end pass defense?
Usually, Jeff, you know this, the answer is automatically yes. I don't care who it is. They're a tight end. They're facing the Bengals. Yes. But man, Dawson Knox just not involved in the offense enough. He's been on the field a lot too, but I am desperate in a league where I have George Kittle on a bye. So I think I might do it. So I think it's more desperation, but we have just seen the Bengals just cannot cover the tight ends. It's so bad how historically bad they've been against the position. So I guess we do have to look there. Now, Kincaid, I believe, was added to the injury report today with a knee issue too, which is just absolutely brutal. Yeah, you were hoping to get him back because he'd be a top 5 tight end this week, Kincaid. Mm-hmm. They miss him a lot. You know, I know he doesn't play all of the snaps, but when he's out there, they get him the football, and they're missing him in this offense. So if he's out there, he's a top 5 tight end. Knox clearly not as high, but I think if you needed to stream a tight end out of desperation, I think you could look the way of Knox. But you would not put him in your top 12 if Kincaid is out, right?
No. I've got him at like 18.
Yeah.
I've got him ranked as if Kincaid's not going to play until I get indication that he's going to play. I always put him at the bottom of my rankings, and then if they say he's going to play, then I'll move him up. But I've got Knox below Evan Engram, Harold Fannin, AJ Barner. It's below a number of average tight ends. So you're right. I not a whole lot of confidence there. Quick question, a tight end question here from Jay Red. This is a good one because they're right next to my back-to-back in my ranks. I want to hear how you have them. Oronde Gadsden versus Strange for Jacksonville. Who do you got?
I think I'm going to go Strange this week. I'm a little worried about Gadsden. Number one, it's a tough matchup against Philly. Number two, we don't know if Justin Herbert's going to start. And I don't know if the knee is still bothering Gadsden, but yeah. I mentioned at the top how we go through periods of the year where we're like, we have a league winner, we have a breakout. And that was how it felt with Gadsden. And I have him in several leagues, and I was feeling really good. And now I'm nervous. The other factor that you take into account, and we knew this was going to happen, you just have so many guys there. You have Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen, Gadsden. This offense cannot support every one of them every single week. So some of them are going to have down weeks, and we've seen Gadsden have a couple down weeks. Now, he's still been out there quite a bit. Week 11, he played 88% of the snaps, I think. Then week 12, he had the bye, and then last week he was at 70%. But he's still running a good amount of routes, and he's such a talented player. But I think there's factors here that I have to go with Brenton Strange this week.
I agree with you. I still have him back-to-back in my rankings. I go Strange over Gadsden, but I have him over like Ferguson and Schultz. I mean, it's close. And Ferguson is like touchdown or bust.
Yeah.
It doesn't get the volume anymore. So there's only so many passes that can go around in that offense there. Ready to rip through a handful of questions on the way out of here?
Let's do it.
All right. Start off with Ace Bama, who asks, trade deadline next week. Trade away Rico Dowdle and Justin Jefferson, who we talked about, for Judkins and T. Higgins. Would you do that?
I think I would do that, yeah.
I would too. I like that trade actually quite a bit. Juan wants to talk about a question there for himself. Again, you know what? I'm sorry, guys. You just got to ask the either or. You can't list your whole lineup for us there. It doesn't make for good podcasting. I apologize for not getting that question, Juan. Just too many variables there. Would you pick up, Matty I says, would you pick up A.D. Mitchell or Isaac Tesla over Michael Wilson this week? I would not, especially with Harrison maybe not playing.
Yeah, look, we've seen it. If Harrison is out, Michael Wilson has just been so good. I mean, 2 huge games, and we saw last week he tailed off a little bit with Harrison back, but Harrison looked like he was not very comfortable at all and in pain. And we've seen the heel injury. Debo Samuel tried to play through it, was not good, and then had to miss time. So if Harrison's out, it's Michael Wilson.
Agreed completely. Fantasy Meatball says need to sit one. DK, Odunze, Higgins, or Pittman. Who's your sit?
All of them. No, just kidding. Damn this.
Which Higgins, by the way? I don't know if it's Jaden.
I'm assuming it's Jaden, right? We don't.
You're not going to sit T if he's playing, right?
Yeah, I don't think we need to ask. I guess it would be. Who would it be? I guess Jaden Higgins.
So for me, it's Metcalf.
Actually, you know what? You're right. I think everyone ranks Metcalf high every week too high.
I do. I have been, and I moved him down to 36 this week. Finally did it.
I understand. People look at it and they go, well, he's going to get the bulk of the targets in this offense, but it's such a bad. Do people realize how bad DK Metcalf has been? You're right, Jeff. I'm sorry. Metcalf is the sit. I can't do it. Yeah.
Plus, that means you don't have to watch Pittsburgh play offense, and that's a bonus there too. Trone Forrest asks, he has too many Eagles, Barkley, Devonta, and Goddard to his detriment. Some weeks drop Goddard for Ertz. Good or bad move?
Ertz has been pretty good. I know Goddard's really slowed down. And going into the year, I didn't like Goddard because I felt with Brown and Smith, there's not enough for him to go around. I'm actually okay with that move. Zach Ertz has been good, and we might get Jaden Daniels back. I think there's more of an opportunity for Ertz to get targets in his offense. Goddard is very reliant on a touchdown. If you go look at what he was doing, he was scoring a touchdown like every 5 receptions. You knew that was not going to continue.
Right, exactly. And it's as the whole Eagles offense is grounded in the muck, so is Goddard's production. Steven asks, Debo, Troy Franklin, Michael Wilson, pick 2. So who sits? Debo, Troy Franklin, Michael Wilson.
Debo.
Yeah. It's close for Debo versus Franklin for me because Franklin had such a bad game.
And he also saw less snaps and routes run than Pat Bryant last week.
Yeah. Yep, that's right. Bryant, and they traded up to go get Bryant in that draft. So you can see that they really do like Bryant quite a bit. 2 more, and then we'll get out of here. Tom asks, this is a good one here, theoretical question. I kind of like these instead of the starter sit questions. Play-in situation. Do you play safer floor or higher ceilings?
If I'm trying to get in, I'm probably going to go with the safe floor.
All right. Finally, Jeff Rogers asked tight end question. Darren Waller, Juwan Johnson.
I'm going Juwan Johnson here. I do like Waller, and his playoff schedule is ideal. Very good matchups. But I'm going to go with Juwan Johnson here.
I like it. I like it a lot. Had Juwan Johnson on our show, actually, right when they're going into their bye week. Really good guy. He talked about his transition from wide receiver to tight end. He was to 2 different colleges. Really nice guy. Really enjoyed having him. So I'm biased in his favor now too.
It's always good when you get players that come on and talk well, because sometimes you get a lot of vanilla. We had Torrey Horton on, and he was great.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. You never know which ones are going to be great, which ones are going to be less than great. It's been a long career. I've had a little bit of both, but Juwan Johnson was fantastic. So I was glad to have him there. All right. What can I promote for you? What should I point listeners towards for your work?
Yeah, you can find a lot of my work at fantasylife.com, on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, weekdays, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern, right before the RotoWire show with Jeff. Sunday morning, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. And also I give out betting picks for subscribers on WAP.com, Adam-Ronis. You could get the link on my bio on X at Adam Ronis, on Instagram, ARON88. And, I put out the results every night. I've been on fire lately. I know it's going to slow down at some point. But, I've won, I think it's 37 of the last 57 NBA bets, and football's been really good. I did have last week was only 4-4. I kind of had an idea that it was going to be a rough week, which is probably why I didn't have heavy volume, but I've won 36 of the last 53 NFL bets as well. So
awesome.
Yeah, just, putting in a lot of work. And look, you're going to lose some bets. You understand that. I'm going through a nice hot streak right now. It helps then when the losing streak comes, right? When you have these nice hot streaks, because it's not going to last forever. We've got to be transparent about that. I know we're out here trying to sell stuff and sell ourselves, but there's going to be losing streaks. I was 1-2 last night. So, if I have a couple of nights of those, but keep going, 4-1 here, 3-2 there, then in the end, I'm all about long-term profit. I'm not giving out ridiculous parlays that are going to lose, just straight up bets. And it's all about volume over time and long-term profit. So, helping people get a little extra money.
Yep. And I love that you're a multi-sport grinder too. It's one of my favorite things. I love it. So, hey, big thanks to everybody for tuning in. Adam, thank you. Really appreciate you coming on board today, and we'll do this again sometime in the near future.
Appreciate the invite. Always good talking to you, man. One of the best in the biz.
All right. Thanks, Adam. That's Adam Ronis, everybody. Follow him on Twitter at Adam Ronis. We got Mario and John McKechnie tomorrow. Thanks for listening to the RotoWire podcast, streaming with us if you were there with us live. Good luck in week 14. Take care.